National lockdown now being discussed to break the chain of transmission in the country. This, as scientists say, India has to prepare for a third phase or third wave of coronavirus. Goa has India's highest positivity rate, nearly 50%. Haryana, Bengal and Delhi in the top 5 states. Supreme Court says by 10:30 a.m. deadline, Delhi should have enough oxygen and a plant as well. DRDO oxygen plants come up in 48 hours at AIIMS. Navy warships bringing oxygen to India. BJP at the COVID war room. Is this a Hajj or Madarsa? Well, shocking statements really coming in from a BJP MP. Controversy breaks out as Muslim employees are singled out. Bribes for beds was supposed to be the scam. Foreign Minister delegation isolates in London. 2 members of the Indian delegation to G7 test positive. Mamta sworn in as Chief Minister for the 3rd time. The only woman Chief Minister currently in the country announces lockdown, no local trains to run. Now outrage over fake videos of violence as well. And Indians just not learning. Look at these crowds as rituals continue to happen in middle of a tsunami of COVID cases in the country. Hello and welcome. You're watching NDTV 24/7. I'm Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor. Well, at this point, we were all discussing about it. There were states imposing it. There were experts calling for it. Doctors saying it's the need of the hour. And finally, the government, at least the technical heads over there, like Dr. V.K. Paul, are saying that the government at this point is discussing the possibility of a national lockdown.
जब वायरस का स्प्रेड बढ़ता है, एक्सेसिव होता है, तो चेन्स ऑफ ट्रांसमिशन को रोकने के जो बाकी एफर्ट्स हैं उनके साथ में रिस्ट्रिक्शंस को भी बीच में लाया जाता है. और इस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में 29 अप्रैल को डिटेल गाइडलाइन इशू करी गई हैं. दोज ऑप्शंस आर ऑलवेज बीइंग डिस्कस्ड एंड दोज डिसीजंस एज रिक्वायर्ड विल बी टेकन. But at the same time, remember, this already there is a very significant guidance to the states to impose restrictions in order to suppress the chains of transmission.
And this news comes at a time when the scientists are already talking about a third wave of coronavirus in the country, saying it is simply inevitable. Government's top scientific advisors had said, in fact, given out warnings that vaccines will need to be updated and to deal with the new strains that have overwhelmed hospitals and left thousands dead as well. Updated why? Because of these new variants. Remember the B1617 that we've been talking about for quite some time now, talking about this double mutation in the country that the government even did not even admit it for the longest time. Now finally, in middle of this massive surge, they've come out to say that this is the major cause of a tsunami of cases and mostly the cause behind the massive surge in cases in the country as well. In fact, they've given out a breakup finally today, talking about how there are about cases in Maharashtra, in Delhi, in Gujarat, Karnataka. Remember, all these states in the top 5 at the moment.
Where does SARS coronavirus 2 go from here? A phase 3 is inevitable, given the high levels of circulating virus. But it's not clear on what time scale this phase 3 will occur. Hopefully, incrementally, but we should prepare for new waves. Previous infections and vaccines will cause adaptive pressure on the virus for new kinds of changes which try to escape it. And therefore, we should be prepared by scientifically to take care of that. So B117, other variants like 617, are accumulating changes which show excellent vaccines, on which vaccines show excellent efficacy, but ongoing surveillance is needed and vaccine updates as we go ahead with new kinds of variants are inevitable.
So important advisory there of scientists now saying, even while we are still dealing so badly with the second wave, they're saying we already have to prepare for the third one at this point. Now, at this point also, almost all states and union territories in India have positivity rate of over 5%. The government's threshold really, this is the number of tests turning out to be positive at this point, but 24 of these are extremely high, above 15%. That the worst really are states like Goa, which has a positivity rate of 48%, Haryana 37%, Bengal 33%, Delhi 32% as well. Maharashtra was almost there, but because of the lockdown, because of very strict restrictions, they've managed to cut down on their numbers and cut down on the positivity rate at this point. But cutting down on numbers and positivity rate does not mean that they've managed to do deaths. Remember, those are numbers which only reflect towards the end of a wave really, and that's exactly what's happening in Maharashtra, where they recorded 920 deaths. That's the highest ever, and more than 57,000 new cases. As authorities said, this is the worst affected, in the worst affected districts really still continue to show a declining trend in the infection, which is a good sign. Capital Mumbai, for example, reported about 3,800 cases, 77 deaths. Pune had about 9,000 cases over there and 93 deaths. The state currently has about 6,41,000 active cases, and according to officials, 920 deaths. This has been the highest, which is majorly up from the previous day's deaths, which are about 414.
हाँ, ही गोष्ट खरी आहे की महाराष्ट्रामधल्या काही जिल्ह्यांमध्ये रुग्णवाढ थोडीशी उतरायला लागलेली आहे, पण त्याचबरोबरीने काही जिल्ह्यांमध्ये रुग्णवाढ थोडीशी व्हायला लागलेली आहे. आता केंद्र सरकारच्या विज्ञान विषयक सल्लागारांनी एक इशारा दिलेला आहे की देशामध्ये तिसरी लाट येते आहे, सावध रहा. सावध रहा म्हणजे काय करायचं, तर नवीन काही नाही आहे त्याच गोष्टी. आपण काय करतो आहोत, सावध काय राहतो आहोत.
So that was the state of Maharashtra, some encouraging signs over there, and encouraging signs earlier were coming from Kerala, but it seems like the state is again in seeing a spike at this point. Highest daily cases at about 41,953, 58 deaths reported in the past 24 hours as well. The test positivity rate is about 25.69%, and but the good news is there has been a slight decline so far, but you know, with the new strains coming in, the story in Kerala for COVID is also fast changing. In fact, Supreme Court has now taken cognizance of the oxygen crisis. They've been talking about it. Several high courts in the country have been talking about it as well. And Supreme Court has now set yet another deadline for the centre, saying that they need a comprehensive plan, saying centre must submit a plan shortly now and examine the Mumbai model as well and try and see what we can learn from there. Also saying trying other levels also best. That's what the centre said, saying that they're trying to increase the oxygen availability in a couple of states as well. But the Supreme Court seemed not very convinced. They're saying submit your plan by tomorrow, that's Thursday, 10:30 a.m. and they need to know what's going on until then. Meanwhile, in Gurugram, viral videos have emerged from a hospital where relatives could be seen running around, and allegedly the hospital staff also there just leaving them abandoned, ICU patients, and ran away. This after the hospital ran out of oxygen. The video is from the Kirti Hospital in Gurugram Sector 56, where 6 people lost their lives last Friday due to oxygen shortage. And in this video, you can see empty chairs, relatives asking police why the hospital staff is missing. The hospital director, Dr. Swati Rathore, told NDTV later that despite raising an alarm over oxygen shortage, there was no help. The staff was so scared to face the relatives that they simply locked up the ICU and ran away.
सर आपके होते हुए डॉक्टर लोग कैसे भाग सकते हैं सारे पेशेंट को अंदर डेथ छोड़ के?
हम नहीं बन सकते डॉक्टर को, हम जानते हैं डॉक्टर ही हो। नहीं कहाँ से
यार कोई क्राइम करके जाएगा, आप रोक नहीं सकते उसको।
लिख रखिए क्या? गरम नहीं ठंडा।
भाई साहब जिसके घर से 2 बंदे जाते हैं ना उसको पता होता है गर्म या ठंडा। आपके होते हुए कैसे जा सकते हो?
हम किसी को बन सकते हैं क्या?
So you saw that video. Now see this. The hospital director claimed that she asked her staff to hide in the canteen to save their own lives, as just 6 days ago on April 24th, attendants of the other patients had violently assaulted their staff members. An FIR had been registered by the hospital as well. The footage you see is of the day the hospital staff were beaten up by the attendants. And in the pictures that we bring to you next, you will see how frantic relatives are knocking on the ICU doors, and inside you see ICU patients, but all dead.
सारे मरे पड़े। क्या हुआ? डॉक्टर मार रहे हैं वो लोग। कौन है? ये इनके 2 अटेंडेंट बैठे हैं यहाँ पे। आप अंदर जाते हैं। गेट बंद कर दिया। बाहर चलो जी, बस बस। देखो माँ इधर इधर डेड डेड सब ऐसे ही पड़े रहे।
We are currently standing outside the Kriti Hospital in Sector 56 in Gurgaon. This is in news right now because there has been a constant oxygen shortage at this hospital, like many others. But here on Friday night, 6 people lost their lives due to oxygen shortage at this hospital. Now you see oxygen cylinders here, supplies a little better since last Friday after this incident happened, and 6 people lost their lives. What exactly happened that night on Friday is that, according to hospital director Dr. Swati Rathore, we spoke to her, and what she told us is that since 2 p.m. in the afternoon they had been raising SOS alarms to all the authorities, all the government authorities. They had been asking them, telling them that they are running out of oxygen in this hospital. At that point, the 6 people who lost their lives that night included 3 people who were in the ICU and 3 people who had been in the regular wards. A total of 15 COVID patients were present in this hospital at that point. This is a 50-bedded hospital. Since 2 p.m. they started raising SOS calls, but nobody was addressing their calls. No authorities came to their rescue. By 11 p.m. they ran out of oxygen. 6 people lost their lives, 3 in the ICU, 3 in the regular wards. And that is when even relatives of patients started running around. They tried to also vandalize the hospital here, tried to look for staff, but there was none to be found anywhere. There are videos that have emerged from that night where relatives are going around asking for help, but there is no hospital staff present at that moment. Later, the police came in, tried to help the situation out. The police also brought certain oxygen cylinders. Now, according to the hospital director, she says that because just last week there had been another incident where many of the relatives had tried to attack the hospital staff over the issue of oxygen shortage. That is why she asked that night for a hospital staff to run to safety as soon as she realized that there had been casualties, because she said that my staff would also have ended up losing their lives. And just last week there are very clear videos where their staff did also face physical harm. She also had lodged a police complaint for the incident that had happened just the last week prior to this incident. In Gurgaon with camera person Sushil Rathi, this is Sukirti Dwivedi for NDTV.
Shocking really that this is happening here in Delhi NCR region. And you know, the story leaves you not just angry with the system, because these are patients who are dying not because of COVID but because of lack of oxygen, but also about the absolute apathy of these hospitals. They don't know whom to go to, and they also don't know how to handle this situation, and people continue to lose their lives. Now let's switch our focus to what's happening in Rajasthan, where COVID cases have breached the 15,000 plus mark each day, and while districts like Jodhpur, Jaipur, Udaipur, Kota, etc. are high urban population account for maximum of these cases. Rural Rajasthan not unaffected. In fact, districts like Chittorgarh, Pratapgarh are also seeing a massive surge in cases. A population of migrant labor who work in Rajasthan and Maharashtra, they were reportedly coming back, and they have also ended up turning a lot of them positive. The government data says the positivity rate at the moment is 58%.
The Chittorgarh District Hospital in Rajasthan. 230 out of 400 beds in this government facility are oxygen beds. They are all full. Some patients can be seen occupying space on the floor. With a peak of 736 cases and over 400 to 500 cases every day, Chittor, with a high population of migrants, is one of the worst affected rural districts in Rajasthan.
कोविड का जो ये दूसरी लहर है उसमें चित्तौड़गढ़ जिले में ग्रामीण क्षेत्र से हमारे पास काफ़ी मरीज आ रहे हैं और एक अज्ञानतावश वो टेस्ट नहीं करवाते, बीमारी गंभीर होने के बाद में जो काफ़ी लेट स्टेज में यहाँ प्रेजेंट कर रहे हैं और उसकी वजह से जो उनके इलाज में भी काफ़ी दिक्कत आती है और जब तक संक्रमण काफ़ी ग्रामीण क्षेत्र में फैल चुका होता है.
41% of COVID cases are being reported from rural areas. In Sikar district in one village, Maharashtra, more than 50 cases were reported.
हमारे यहाँ की पॉपुलेशन समथिंग 10,000 है और यहाँ की स्थिति है कि हमारे यहाँ पे कोविड में पिछली बार तो कोई भी पेशेंट नहीं था, इस बार बहुत ज्यादा पेशेंट है और जो मजदूर लोग हैं बाहर से आ रहे हैं.
Rural Rajasthan has been hit like never before. All 33 districts in the state are reporting above 100 cases each day. Apart from the lack of awareness, returning migrants is another reason for the spike.
संस्थागत रखा गया था, उसमें बाहर से आने वालों को वहाँ रखा जाता था संस्थागत क्वारंटाइन, लेकिन इस बार कोई व्यवस्था नहीं होने से बहुत सारे तो संक्रमित है जो अपने घरों में रह रहे हैं और उनके घर वाले हमारे बीच में रह रहे हैं.
Village people on the periphery of big cities say they have decided to stay away from big towns for now.
कौन जाए ऐसा महाराज जयपुर में जाए कोड़ जाए इंडा ही रहे तो सब घर बैठे थे काम करवाई कौन जाए कोड़ नहीं बैठे थे.
हमारे गांव में हमारा एक समाज कल्याण केंद्र है, वहाँ पर हमने एक कोविड सेंटर भी बना रखा है, तो जो भी कोई अगर ऐसे कोई भी ग्रामवासी है जिसको इसमें लक्षण हो तो वो कोविड सेंटर में आकर यहाँ पर रह सकता है.
Rajasthan is geographically India's largest state, and to reach medical help like oxygen and life-saving drugs as the virus spreads in rural areas is the state government's biggest challenge. With Salman in Chittor and BL Saroj in Sikar, in Jaipur, Harsha Kumari Singh, NDTV.
In fact, a bit of a correction on that story. Actually, the total number of cases, 58.8% of them are coming in from urban areas in Rajasthan and 41% of them coming in from rural areas. That just tells you there's hardly any divide left between those two places. With that, we're going to slip into a break. When we come back, we'll bring you the latest from West Bengal. Welcome back. Let's bring you the latest from the Panchayat polls in Uttar Pradesh, where BJP seems to be suffering a huge setback. Now, at the time of this broadcast, leads had come in only for about 666 seats. And at this point, BJP seems to be a big loser, where the Samajwadi Party has about 747 out of those over 3,000 seats. And other leads, smaller parties and large chunk of independents also winning in at this point. So what should have the party been worried about at the moment is that even in their significant strongholds, you don't see BJP doing very well. Take Ayodhya, for example, where BJP has won 6 out of the 40 seats. In Varanasi, about 40 seats, and BJP has won only 8 of them, lost 32. Varanasi is the Prime Minister's constituency. Mathura, their losses as well. In Prayagraj and Gorakhpur, BJP is losing big. In Prayagraj, for example, there are 84 seats. BJP has won 14, lost 70. This is the Chief Minister's constituency, remember. In Gorakhpur as well, 68 seats, out of it BJP has got only 28. A huge setback there for Yogi Adityanath. UP government, remember, went ahead with the polls despite calls of postponement in midst of this pandemic. Meanwhile, in West Bengal, it was a day of oath-taking for Mamata Banerjee after Trinamool's spectacular win, and with that, she becomes the only woman chief minister currently in the country.
আমি মমতা ব্যানার্জি ঈশ্বরের নামে শপথ করিতেছি।
Taking oath for the third time, West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee, the only woman Chief Minister in the country today, she joins a club of just 3 other women who have served as Chief Minister for 3 whole terms and more. Jayalalitha, Mayawati and Rabri Devi. Mamata Banerjee's fight for her third term was monumental. It boiled down to a Mamata versus Modi fight, one that she won decisively. The result could impact India's political future.
Please take proper care যাতে কোনো ভায়োলেন্স কোথাও না হয় এবং কোথাও কোথাও ইলেকশনের পরে কিছু স্পোরাডিক ইনসিডেন্ট হয়। আমি আজ থেকে ল এন্ড অর্ডার ট্যাকেল করব এবং কঠোর হস্তে আমি এগুলো মোকাবিলা করব, এটা আমার সেকেন্ড কাজ।
At the swearing-in itself, signals of stormy times ahead. The governor and she sparring over post-poll violence.
যাতে কোনো রকম কোনো অশান্তি কোথাও না হয়, আর যদি কেউ অশান্তি করে তার বিরুদ্ধে কড়া পদক্ষেপ নিতে আমি কিন্তু পেছপা হব না।
The stance of that vandalism, the nature of attacks, killings, injuries, arson, loot, that can't be allowed, that cannot be overlooked, and have my assurance that shall not be overlooked.
At least a dozen people have died and Mamata Banerjee has called for calm. But she and her party have accused BJP of churning out fake news, a claim confirmed by fact-checkers.
अगस्त 1946 जब मैं याद करता हूं, डायरेक्ट एक्शन डे की बात करता हूं, तो मैं उसी के साथ साथ आज जो 2 तारीख की दोपहर के बाद घटनाएं घटी हैं, that also is like a Khela Hobe day.
Mamata Banerjee has flagged BJP's claims as attempts to fan communal tension. JP Nadda, steering BJP protests, locked horns.
BJP is famous for fake news. Their fake news master, Amit Mallavia, is sitting here spreading fake news. But these fake news wallas made no difference to the election. They will make no difference now.
Third time lucky, they say, but Mamata Banerjee is kicking off her third term with 3 battles to fight: post-poll violence, COVID and the BJP, which is smarting from its defeat and in no mood to ease the pressure on her. With Saurabh Gupta, Mondeepa Banerjee, NDTV.